Okay, I am sitting down here with it happens all the time. I'm going to keep that in, by the way. I'm sitting here with Kristina Carmela, who is an author herself, but is also the brains behind the Indieverse Awards that is going into its first annual award ceremony. Just kicked off by announcing nominations and has some big plans for this year leading up to the actual announcements of the official award winners. So, Christina, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing super well. I want everybody to know that this is 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning that we are recording. I want to say thank you for accommodating me in my very weird dad schedule. But yeah, it's nice. I see you have your cup of tea. I have my cup of coffee. It all
Yep,
worked out.
all worked out.
Yes, yes. So, yeah, I mean, first thing I want to get into, obviously, I want to ask about your career as a writer and a podcaster. You have a lot of creative outlets. I want to ask about the Indieverse Awards, how you came up with the idea and sort of how long it took you to actually conceive of this, put it together, and get the word out.
Yeah, so I always joke that the Indieverse Awards kind of started selfishly. I'm an indie author myself. My first book actually debuted. It's going to be 2 years this month, which is exciting. But
Oh, what's the book title? Don't just skirt past that. Come
don't
on.
just that book is This Time Around. So that kicked off a very big series that I'm writing. Um, and when you start writing, you're excited and you don't know what you don't know. And last year I learned that a lot of major book awards just like automatically disclude self-published books specifically, which is I'm a
Mhm.
self-published author. And I got frustrated and I was like, well, that's annoying. And then, you start to like look more and more into awards. And like we don't write for awards, but it's also really nice to have recognition, to have something fun like that. So, I started looking into it and I got annoyed. And when I get
That's a
annoyed,
great place to start from. Get annoyed at something, do it yourself.
well, that's exactly it. I was like, I can't change what other people are doing. I can't I can't force people to include indie authors or to change how their awards are run. Like that's not my place. You do what you want to do. Um, and so I was like, let me do it myself.
Mhm.
So the idea of this started probably last summer. And I sat on it for a while because I wanted the awards to also stand out. I didn't want it to be we have nominees and then a few weeks later we vote, which is like totally fine, for awards that do that. But I'm a small indie author and I wanted a space that I can collaborate and that I can like get readers to read my books a little bit more. So it took me a little while to make my own spin on it. And that's why nominees were announced in March, but we're not voting until November, which is a very big gap time. But I want people to read. That's like the whole point. I want people to read a lot more books, indie books specifically, and vote on what they actually loved, not necessarily just like the popular books that they know in the indie space. That's kind of the origins of it. It's a little selfish, but it's okay.
Well, yeah, and it is a really interesting approach because you mentioned, you just announced the nominees in March, and the actual winners aren't going to be announced in November because, and this is pretty obvious, I feel like the point of the awards, or even the nominations, is to get people to read these works more. So
Right.
you built in that period for readers to actually discover the books so that when they go to vote, they actually are speaking with some sort of authority as to what's their favorite.
Right. And I kind of made the categories, a lot of nominees are nominated in a lot of categories. So
Mhm.
I kind of made it to so you're starting with the category you love. I'm guessing a lot of people are going to start with the handful that are genre based because there's
Mhm.
not a lot of genre based ones. Um, and then they can get introduced to so many great new authors. I think indie authors are really hard to find if you're not looking for them. Um, so yeah, so we're really giving readers the opportunity to find their next favorite author, which I think is fun.
Awesome. And I do want to ask about how you came up with the categories. But first, you mentioned that a lot of book awards exclude self-published authors. And I want to see if I could get your opinion as to why you think that might be the case. What's the sort of stigma with self-publishing?
I think like the biggest, most common misconception about self-published books is that we self-publish because we're not good enough to be traditionally published. But when you sit and you talk to a lot of self-published authors, like I do, most of us never queried. I didn't query. Querying was not something that interested me. I knew my books would not be very marketable for traditional anyway. So, I just think that people automatically assume we're just not good enough, that we don't hire professionals to like edit and help and develop our books. A lot of us are doing all of those really big things, and my whole bookshelf is just indie books, and they're really, really good. So I think it's just like such a big misconception that if you're doing it alone, you're not doing it right, because it's different.
Mhm.
You know?
And it's a fascinating discussion too, because I have this talk with a lot of people who come onto the podcast because I have people who they have been self-published. They go back and forth between traditional, in a sense. I haven't had anyone who's been published by a big press, except one in particular, Patrick
Mhm.
Barb. He was published by a an imprint of a large publisher, so he has that experience. It's a much different game. Even when
Yes.
you publish with small presses, I've heard, and I'm a small press too, and as a small press that is going to be publishing other people's work, I try to I try to make sure my authors are protected in a way where
Mhm.
I don't want all of the marketing to fall on them, because the thing I hear a lot from authors who wish they self-published is that they partnered with a small press that didn't do any marketing for them whatsoever. So
Yeah.
it's a very, very interesting discussion, and I think right now we're seeing this crazy wild boom in self-publishing where people are doing maybe better than you could have done with even a traditional publisher with it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's really interesting.
It is. I love the topic of talking about it. But yeah, I think the whole like landscape of publishing is really starting to change a little bit more, at least from when I started 2, 3 years ago. So
Hmm. Well,
exciting.
if I could ask you for your opinion again, why do you think self-published work and celebrating self-published work, or independently published work, as I like to call it, is really important right now?
I think that giving the space for self-published and indie authors to be celebrated is unique, and it's important because like we're a lot of us are full, like I work full time. I do this on, it's not that my books are a passion project. Like I love them. I would love to be a full-time author, but like I can't. Like it's hard to make a living off of doing just that,
I mean, you,
right?
you don't make a living off of self-publishing and podcasting. That's
Weird.
crazy.
Weird, right? Like I wish. Like how nice would that be? If I win the lotto tonight, I will be. Um so I think it's a really cool way to celebrate the people who are just really naturally creative and who are putting themselves out there, um because we're all just kind of like using writing as this great outlet for our own creativity and to connect with other people. So I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing so many more self-published authors come about, and celebrating that group is just really exciting. And I think it's important to keep encouraging people to share their stories, because there's so many good stories out
Mhm.
there already and that are waiting to be told. Self-publishing, so in indie, like it's all so discouraging. I don't want to discourage. I want people to be excited to write and to get their books out there.
Yeah, and to me, there's some excitement around the rawness of a
Mhm.
self-published work where maybe it hasn't gone through, 17 sets of hands before you get that final product in your hands. It's a pure vision. And maybe, I mean, maybe there's some formatting issues, maybe a typo here and there, but you are getting someone's pure vision, and it's really interesting. And that's what I love about self-pub work too.
I agree. I'm with you.
Yeah.
You get to so much more interesting stories. They're so much more fun.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, they can be. Um, so about the categories. So there are a
Yeah.
lot of really interesting categories that you put together, some which when you first announced this, you said, honestly, I don't know if we're going to have enough nominees in each category to keep all of
Yeah.
them, but how did you go about putting together the list of categories, of which it seems like they're close to 100?
There was initially, I think it was 79 categories we
Mhm.
started with. So, um, at first I knew I wanted some paid ones. A lot of regular, you know, awards, the cost to enter is like, some of them are astronomical. Like some of them are like $300 just to submit a title. I'm like,
Oh my
that's
gosh, I know
crazy.
that's a whole other discussion we could have because yes, it's a racket. I am not a big fan of traditional book awards. I'm not. It's too
But
expensive.
it's wild just to even like submit.
Yes.
So I knew I wanted some paid ones that were affordable and that would have prizes. And I haven't announced what the prizes are going to be. I'm like pretty positive that I know what they're going to be. Um, and so those were $10. I was like, $10 is pretty affordable for you to submit. And it didn't guarantee a nomination either. But I felt like that was fair, especially for like a new awards. So those are very genre based. So we have, our best romance, best of thriller, dystopian, those are very genre based. And we have a few others like best cover, best podcast, best blog, like things like that too. And then you start to think about it. And I wanted my categories to be fun because I wanted people to remember them, right? Like you gotta be exciting.
Of course, yeah.
Indie books, self-published books, they're very not genre based in a lot of cases. A lot of us are multi-genre. So I didn't want to pigeonhole anybody. I didn't want anybody to feel like there were no awards for them because they are very genre based. So I was like, screw that. Let's just have fun with it. There's definitely some, like there's a few that were very dedicated to like kids books that's probably like our very genre based ones.
Mhm.
But the free categories are, they're funny, they're sweet, um there's a little different. So I wanted things to celebrate our favorite tropes. People love their tropes.
Mhm.
So we have some fun ones that are trope based, but again, you're going to find tropes in every single genre. It's not just your romance tropes, which I think a lot of people automatically kind of go, think of when they're thinking of tropes. There's a lot of like character based ones, like character with most growth or most badass female character. There's also, I wanted some things for representation. So, mental health
Mhm.
representation, LGBTQ representation, representation I connected most with, which was I left open. So
Mhm.
we are celebrating books with like pregnancy loss, anxiety, bullying, body positivity, all these different kinds of things. So I wanted a real mix of fun, character based setting, they're setting based ones, like a little bit of everything. Um, because I wanted a lot of books to fit into a lot of these categories.
Mhm.
So yeah, the process was fun. Did have one of my friends, Hallie Starling, helped me out because I couldn't do it alone. So she thought of some fun ones also, which was exciting. So we kind of collaborated together
Mhm.
and made our very big list of categories.
Did you personally have any favorites from those free categories?
I love the representation ones. I loved oh my god, I don't even know. Like I always like favorite love triangle, enemies I'm glad became lovers. Like those ones always stick out in my brain.
Mhm.
Um yeah, I think the representation ones are some of my favorite ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's too many to choose from. I did it to myself.
Yeah, as a horror guy, I really liked the most terrifying scene.
That
Very
was a popular.
interested to see who wins for that one. Um, and the other one I thought was interesting and also very nice was hottest consent scene.
Hottest consent scene.
It's like, okay, there is a
Yeah.
lot of spice in the indie publishing community, and I think it's great that you added up hottest consent scene in there.
You know what? That one was one that I love too. Like I'm very big on consent in books and I have it in all of my books too. But I was surprised at how many people were so excited about that one. That was one of our
Yeah.
bigger ones. Like people were pumped and I was like, I'm glad. I'm glad that this is something that people are excited about.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well,
Yeah.
we should talk about the vetting process here because full disclosure, I'm not sure I mentioned it earlier. You, though you are running the Indieverse Awards, you are
Yes.
a nominated author.
Mm-hmm.
I am a nominated author
Yes.
of multiple categories, and this podcast is also nominated for an award. So yay.
Woo!
Hey, no unfair treatment here, right? This is a we're working the synergy, okay? But there's no
Exactly.
unfair treatment. So so how did you did have a vetting team? It wasn't
Yeah.
just you. How did you guys go about actually vetting out the enormous amount of nominees and whittling them down to, something that seemed fair and unbiased?
Yeah, it was hard. I didn't know how this would take off. So when I started in January, yeah, January, thankfully my brain was like, you need people. Like it can't just be me.
Hmm.
That would have never been fair anyway, having just one person look at anything. So thank goodness I had started to like build a team because we got almost 5,000 submissions,
Yeah, I was gonna
which
say you
was
didn't know at the time that you were gonna get thousands of submissions,
like
so of course you couldn't have done that on your own.
no, no, like I thought maybe if I was gonna get like 500 to 1,000, that was kind of like where I was like, cool, this is great. No, it was almost 5,000. Um, like some of my weekends that in like January and February were just about the awards. So initially what I had done was I went through all the submissions, weeded out duplicates because there was lots of duplicates, which is great. So that like weeded out a ton. And then publishing dates. So this award season is looking at the books that were published in 2023. And then like next year, we'll look at the books that are published this year and kind of like that'll always be the cadence.
Well,
So a
there
lot of
there
books
was a
got weeded out.
cutoff. There was a
There
cutoff
was a cutoff,
of January
January 31st.
2024.
Yes,
So
you're
listen,
correct.
people, my book was published in January 2024, okay? And I just made that
Yes,
cutoff. No
yes.
unfair treatment.
No, that was because I didn't start really promoting it till like mid-January. So I was like, I'll give this group. And also too, if it like failed, I wasn't gonna do it again next year. So yes, January 31st, 2024 was the cutoff for this year. Next year it will just be January to December. So this was
Mhm.
kind of, the starting year. You have a little different things. So once we weeded out duplicates and books that were not published, like I had people submit, like The Hobbit was one. I had a lot of books submitted for the 1980s, and I was like, cool, like not quite what I'm looking for, but awesome. Um, then we looked to make sure that everything was self-published or indie press. So that was like really the first wave of vetting. I had about 15 people who just got chunks of books and they double checked. I mean, it's never going to be 100% perfect. But they reviewed those things and then I had them pop into reviews, which is tricky because not everybody has a lot of reviews.
Mhm.
But you can still kind of get a sense of things. Um, they went onto their socials, their websites, kind of to get like good vibes. I was very, very particular. I did not want anybody who was like blatantly problematic. So like
Yes,
if
all,
you
all the
were
ists and the opias. Yes.
exactly like that was a big, and again, it's not going to be 100% perfect. You're not going to be able to see that just on people's, socials or book reviews. But those are some really big things that we looked at. And I had my team red flag anything if there was anything that they felt was problematic either within the book or within the author. They red flagged it, and there wasn't that many. There was maybe like 15 to 20. Then the whole group just kind of looked at it and reviewed. And then I took all of their input. I think it was still about like 500 authors or so to choose from. I don't have that exact number on the top of my brain. And then I kind of started to piece it all together. I was very, very strict with the line. I only wanted about 150 books nominated.
Mhm.
Because my thing was if we're encouraging readers to read over 7 months,
Yep.
you can't ask them to read 500 books. They're not going to be excited. They're not going to be interested. They're not going to be engaged. It's going to be impossible. So I wanted it to be I mean, I can read like a book every 3 months, but there are people who read, a book a week or, 5, 6 books a month. So I felt like 150 was very manageable because people aren't going to read books. Like horror books kind of scare me still. So like I do want to try, I'm going to try some. That's like my goal. But like you're going to have people who aren't going to read or people who don't love like super spicy books. So I was very strict on that 150. So, I mean, It was a puzzle for me. It was very stressful. I started with those best of categories, so the people who paid, and that kind of set the stage for how everything else happened. And yeah, I just pieced based on my best ability. I went through every single author myself, all of their books, their socials also. Um, and I just tried to pick the best books and the most diverse books that I could for this year and hope that it was the best. And a lot of people who weren't nominated for a title book were nominated for some of our social media ones, which is like underrated author or an author
Hmm.
I'd like to have coffee with. So we're still actually honoring, it's almost 300 authors, and 150 of those are title based. So we'll have their books hopefully being read by people.
Yeah, I did actually notice that there were, I mean, probably 3 or 4 times the amount of nominees for the underrated author and the author I'd like to have coffee with categories,
Yeah.
which actually I thought was pretty nice. I think some people that I actually nominated ended up on those lists, so that's
Yeah.
it's fantastic.
And those I chose not to cap either. Those initially were going to be capped. And I was like, why? Like, we can celebrate so many people. And those, like, it just gives people a chance to get to know them on socials. So those did not get capped. So pretty much anybody who got nominated for those, who submitted for those, ended up getting nominated for the most part.
Yes, yes, I love it.
So
So, so could you tell us a little bit about the timeline from now until November, how people can get involved, what you'd like to see from the writing community in terms of support for this award?
yeah. So I've set up different there's a few different things. So one of my goals is for people to get to know indie authors, right? Like, I think that's really important because you're going to find somebody new that you're going to connect with either as a person or as a storyteller. So we're doing things like I'm doing author shout outs for all the authors throughout my social media page. So
Hmm.
every week you'll get like 3 or 4 different shout outs to kind of get to know different authors. So I really want people to check them out and support them. Um, and we're doing these really fun author on author lives. It's like I think it's Variety magazine who does the like actor on actor, director on director lives. And I was like, how fun would it be to do
Yes.
author lives? Like, just our spin on it.
Oh,
So
I'd 100% do something like that. That sounds like a ton of fun.
so fun. So we have a lot of authors who are doing that. I think it's like one a week that we'll have scheduled starting in May, on Instagram or TikTok. So again, like a way to get to know authors. Um, and then I really want people to read the books. So we're doing a challenge just about every month. So April's challenge is to stuff your TBR. Obviously, you got to get all your books, right? So you can earn entries for buying a book, downloading a free ebook. We're also doing ebook giveaways. We're doing 2 a month on our Instagram page every month through October. So basically, if you're supporting the authors and you're getting their titles, you can enter. It's just on our website, and we'll pick at least 3 winners. I think there might be more. I had a ton of people donate their books, whether they're nominated or not, which has been awesome. So they'll get book boxes with swag. There's like so many great books. So that's April. And we're also collaborating with the Spring Spectacular, which is an indie based event with not just our nominees, but like a ton of indie authors who are basically all putting their ebooks on sale at the same time. So a lot of free books right now that they'll become free April 12th through 15th. And then, it's just again a way to get books. And then May, we're just doing it's like a support our authors challenges. So following on socials. June, we're doing Pride Bingo. And again, all of these will have prizes. July, August is finishing a category. So all of our different categories, you can submit what you finished. And then September, October is leaving reviews. Getting reviews is really, really hard as an author. So we're going to encourage people to actually leave like thoughtful reviews, not just, 4 or 5 star reviews, just like an actual thoughtful review. And you'll get points for leaving reviews for authors. So trying to make the challenges fun for readers, things that will also benefit the authors. And yeah, it's basically just a big collaboration between authors and readers. So I would love for people who love to read, no matter how much you love to read, you can grab books in one category that really interest you and knock those out from now to November if you only have time to read a handful of books like me, right? And there's a lot of authors who submitted who weren't nominated who are being very supportive, which is awesome because we're going to do this every year. Not everyone's going to be nominated every year. So it's cool to see authors who weren't nominated supporting and sharing and following new people and also participating in the challenges. So
Mhm.
that's what I'd love to see.
That's amazing. Well, one thing I want to hit on is that you noted the importance of objective reviews, not just, glowing 4 and 5 star reviews, because I feel like that is kind of a hot button topic right now, especially in
Mm,
the self-publishing world.
yeah.
Um, and you're an author yourself, so you've probably experienced this too, where I almost feel like getting a review that's 3 stars, or I mean, I've never gotten a review lower than 3 stars, thank goodness. It's probably coming at some point, right?
Right.
But I feel like those are so important
Mm-hmm.
because it shows that, you aren't just having like friends review this stuff. You
Right.
want strangers to read it and objectively give their thoughts on it. And I know that
Exactly.
stings as an author, but it's really good for the general public to see that there is some sort of objective opinion out there. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I also know a lot of people who love 1 star reviews who will buy books based off of 1 star
Yeah.
reviews. But I love the idea of like removing this. I mean, if you're gonna review on like an Amazon or Barnes and Noble or something, you obviously have to put stars in.
Yeah.
But I love the kind of looking at reviews for the meat of the actual review, not the
Yeah.
stars. So for me, that's more important. Like this always sticks out to me. I had a 3 star review for my debut, and it was like, I love the characters. I feel like I'm friends with them. The story was great. I read this fast. It was like all these great things. It was a 3 star review, and I was like, well, that's weird. But like, if I read that as a reader, and I read that even if it was 3 stars, I was like, I'd still pick up the book. So like,
Yeah.
again, the meat of the review is much more important than the stars. And I made on the Reader Hub also has like some fun resources. So I made our own like 5 star kind of guidelines for the Indieverse. And I also made this fun little Canva that people can edit themselves. That's like the book, no stars are included. But it's like the vibes. Like you'll like this if you like second chance romance and X, Y, and Z, like the different things. This was my favorite character. This was something I loved. Like a way to kind of pull away from the star review, list the things that you enjoyed, because even if you read a book that you didn't really like that much, you probably still liked a few things or things
Hmm.
that like
Yep.
other people would like, right? So that's available for readers to download and edit and post and share themselves to. That's not really this weird 5 star scale that has been created that isn't always
Yes.
correct, right? So it's
Yeah,
just a
and one
different.
thing I think is great about your site, I think it's just indieverseawards.com,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that you have created a lot of resources that people can just go and download very, very easily. I
Yeah.
haven't really seen that before on a site, so I think it's so cool. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, good on it makes the promotion very, very simple.
Yeah. For me, it keeps like the branding on point, right? People don't have to think about it. I'm also more inclined as just like a human. If you're going to provide me something free where I just have to plug and play and then I can
Yeah,
share, that's fantastic. So,
absolutely.
I spent time, we have that for readers and for nominees that are free. And I'm like, if I can do this, if this gets people excited to post about it, then I'm good. I'll do it, you know?
And speaking of, you've done all this work, put together this big award ceremony, you've put
Mm-hmm.
hours and hours and dollars, your own dollars into this, and you are doing what you've been calling, I believe, $5 Tuesdays,
$5
right?
Tuesdays.
Right, where you're encouraging people just to donate $5, very, very simple, and that helps to cover the cost of the web hosting and some other
Mm-hmm.
things that you just have to do as part of what this is. It's a business, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I got the $5 um idea from actually an animal rescue I follow. They do $5 Fridays, so I changed the day of the week. But
Ah,
we've raised over, I think we're almost at like 450, which is awesome. That's a lot of $5, and people have donated more also, which has been great. Yeah, it'll go towards the website. Eventually the like voting integration. I'm now anticipating like a very big voting pool.
Yep.
So the voting integration I'll likely need to pay for. And then shipping, all these reader fund prizes out and things like
Yep.
that. The money that was spent for the best of awards is totally separate. That does not go to any like admin kind of stuff. That will buy the prizes for the winners of those categories. So,
Yeah,
but people,
so everybody is aware that Kristina Carmela is not getting rich off of
I
this
am,
endeavor. All the money
I
is
have
going back
spent
into the
plenty of,
awards. Yep.
yeah, no, unfortunately, this is not how I'm going to get rich. So
Well, hey, maybe someday, maybe
maybe
we'll be doing this same podcast episode 10 years from now, and you're like, yeah, this is my full-time job. It's incredible.
that'd be awesome.
Love it. Well, we have about 5 minutes here, and I want to make sure we give you some time to talk about yourself as a writer. You know, the books you've written, sort of your trajectory as a writer, and it sounds like you don't have a lot of time on your hands right now to write. So, so what are you doing now in terms of writing?
I actually just started my fifth novel, so I am making sure that I keep time for myself to write. Otherwise, I think I'd go a little crazy. I'm writing a 15 book series called the Nelsonville series. That's the town that it takes place in. So it basically follows five female main characters who are all friends over the course of 5 years, and five trilogies. So each main character, we bounce around main characters. They'll each, by the time the series is complete, get their own trilogy. And so we get to see them kind of grow and evolve in these 5 years as women, as friends, in their romantic relationships, their family drama, and whatnot. So it's a lot of it's quite a mix. People who are reading the books right now are um, realizing that there's a little bit of thrill and suspense. There's romance and spice. There's a lot of female friendships, which are huge. So that's the main series. The fourth book, The Shoreline, is getting published next month. And the fifth book, I'm hoping gets published by the end of the year if I can get my act together and keep writing. And then I also have a side novella series that is from the point of view of our side characters within the main series. So those follow one of our side characters that we know and love through one life-changing year of their life. So the first one takes place in 1968. The second one also comes out next month. That one takes place in 1973. So they'll kind of come out with the novels also, is my goal. The next one will probably take place in the 2000s. So we'll jump time a little bit. But yeah, it's a fun, if you love a good series, if you love getting like really immersed with your characters and your setting, like this is it. You will get very immersed. I have a ton of free bonus content too on the website. So if you're gonna commit to me, I promise to give you lots of extra fun bonus things to enjoy in between that books are coming out. But yeah, those are my books in a very quick nutshell.
Yes, take a breath. Yeah, I mean it's really incredible. I mean, I hear this kind of stuff. I hear people talking about these massive tapestries of series, and we talk about why we do love the outlet of self-publishing, and it's because you can do stuff like this. It's like
Oh yeah,
you could not go to an agent or a publisher and say, "Hey, I have a 15 book plan. It's going to be three separate series of
right.
5 books. It's going to
They'd
span
be like,
multiple
no,
decades." Like, well, I mean, we need to make sure the first one actually does well before we commit to the 14 others, right? So, I mean, it's
exactly.
it's it's incredible. Like a lot of my favorite books that I've read over the past couple of years, they are part of series and probably books that a lot of publishers just wouldn't touch because the content isn't super, commercial. But
Yeah,
I mean, but they're still great, and I think that sounds really cool what you just described, and I
yeah.
hope people are going to look into it.
That's the goal. It's part of the goal. So two of my books are nominated, and I've been very transparent about that. That's not been a secret from
Hmm.
the get-go. Violet Wildflowers, which is the third chronologically in the series, but the first of this character's trilogy. So you can pick it up at this book. And then 1968, which is one of our novellas. So you will see my name.
Mm-hmm.
I am
Yep.
nominated. And if I do win, I've always said too, I will share the stats that prove it. I don't have any more of a leg up than anybody else. So
Yes, you did not shake down any of your volunteer vetting team members
no.
and say, hey, okay,
Right.
I'm not going to say it, but wink, wink, you know what to do.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, so with about a minute and a half here, I want to ask if there's anything awesome that you've read or that you've been watching recently in the little free time that you have that you want to shout out.
Oh my gosh. I've been reading a bunch of indie books lately, and actually one of my favorite indie authors, Jess Smith, her debut, Time for Once, is nominated for a few things, but she is dropping her next book next month, Dream for a Second, and I pre-ordered that bad boy the instant that she put it up on pre-order. I'm so excited for her next main character, Palmer, because I loved him from her first book. So yeah, Jess Smith, maybe this is a little biased because again, she's nominated, but she's definitely a book you're going to want to pick up if you're going to want to start reading some of our titles. So
Awesome, awesome. Well, that's a great shout out. Well, I do really appreciate you jumping on early on a Saturday morning and talking about this really cool platform that you've created, just sort of out of the blue. That's just skyrocketed in popularity. So, really excited to see how it all comes together, and really glad to be a part of it.
yeah, thank you for having me. I'm super excited for everything that's happened and that everything's to come. It's only going to get bigger from here. So I'm excited.